Good morning slash afternoon slash evening, everyone. I want you to take a moment and truly reflect on something powerful. You were chosen. In a world filled with chaos, uncertainty, and challenges, it may sometimes feel like you're just a small part of a much bigger picture. But I stand here today to remind you, no, to affirm to you, that God has a purpose for you. Every moment, every struggle, every joy, every setback has been part of a divine plan. There's something remarkable about the way God works. He doesn't choose the perfect, the polished, or the prepared. He chooses you. You with your flaws, your scars, your doubts, and your dreams. You are not an accident, nor are you here by chance. God saw something in you, something unique, something extraordinary that He knew the world needed. You have a purpose, a mission, a calling that only you can fulfill. And today I want to talk about why you, yes you, are uniquely equipped for the journey ahead. Why God has chosen you for this moment, for this time, for this challenge. So let us dive deep into the strength and purpose that comes with being divinely chosen. And let's find the courage to embrace it. We often hear the phrase, you are chosen for a purpose. But how often do we truly stop to reflect on what that means? It's easy to get lost in the hustle of life, to think we are just drifting along with no particular reason for being where we are. Yet every step you take, every moment you experience, is part of something much greater than you may realize. The truth is, you were chosen for a purpose far beyond what you see right now, and that purpose was set in motion long before you even became aware of it. When you look at your life, consider all the experiences, both big and small, that have shaped you into who you are today. Every challenge you've faced, every victory you've celebrated, every disappointment you've endured, these have not been random. They have been moments designed to mold you, to prepare you, to build the person you are meant to become. Whether you realize it or not, every piece of your journey is part of a grander design that has been unfolding since the very beginning. You were chosen for this. Many of us seek validation from the world around us, constantly looking for approval, recognition, or a sense of belonging. It's natural to want to feel like we matter, that we have significance in a world that sometimes feels too vast to understand. Yet God's purpose for you is not dependent on the world's recognition or the approval of others. It's a deeply personal calling that transcends external validation. The fact that you exist is proof enough that you were chosen. Your life is a testament to the truth that God has a plan for you, even if that plan is not yet fully revealed to you. Think about how unique you are, not just in your personality or your skills, but in the experiences and circumstances that make you you. No one else has lived your exact life. No one else has walked your path, faced the same challenges, or carried the same burdens. Even the things that may seem trivial or insignificant at the time, like the people you meet, the places you visit, the decisions you make, are all part of the design. It's not by accident that you're here in this moment right now. You were carefully chosen to be exactly who you are and to live the life you're living. The idea that God chooses us for a purpose is not just a comforting thought. It is a powerful truth. God doesn't make mistakes. He doesn't choose based on perfection or outward appearances. He doesn't choose based on who we think we should be. He sees something within us that we may not even see in ourselves. God chose you because of your potential, because of what you are capable of becoming, and because of the impact He knows you can have on the world. When we think of being chosen, we often imagine a grand calling or a specific, clearly defined purpose. We may think of being chosen for a leadership role, a great accomplishment, or some monumental task. But being chosen is not limited to the big moments. It's also about the everyday choices, the small acts of kindness, the quiet moments of faith, and the opportunities to grow that God presents to us. In fact, the most important aspects of your purpose may be found in the seemingly mundane, where God's work in your life is slowly being revealed. You were chosen to be part of something bigger than yourself. Your life is not just for your own personal growth or happiness. It is meant to be an example, a source of inspiration, and a beacon of hope to those around you. The people you encounter, the lives you touch, the challenges you help others overcome, these are all part of your purpose. Your life is not a solitary journey. You were chosen for this because your story is meant to intersect with others, to share wisdom, to give love, and to lift others up. And this is where faith plays a crucial role. Trusting that you are chosen, even when it's hard to see why or how, requires faith. It requires the understanding that God's plan for you is perfect, even when the road ahead seems uncertain or when you face hardships that make you question your purpose. Faith is not just about believing in God during the good times. It's about trusting that His purpose for you is still unfolding, even when things are difficult. It's about knowing that every season of your life is purposeful, even when it's hard to understand the bigger picture. So when you feel lost, unsure, or questioning your place in this world, remember that you were chosen, not by accident, not because of your accomplishments, but because God sees the unique potential within you. You are here for a reason. Your life, with all its twists and turns, has meaning beyond what you can see right now. You are part of a divine plan that is unfolding step by step, and you were chosen to walk this path no matter where it leads. Being chosen is not always about instant success or recognition. Sometimes it's about the quiet moments, the personal growth, the lessons learned along the way. Every challenge you face, every success you achieve, every relationship you build is a part of this divine purpose. God is with you, guiding you, and shaping you for something greater than you may even realize. You were chosen for this moment, and in that there is tremendous power and promise. God does not choose the perfect, the polished, or the prepared. He chooses you. This is one of the most profound truths about being chosen for a purpose. So often we think we need to have everything figured out before we can truly step into what God has for us. We think that only the qualified are worthy of fulfilling a divine purpose. We look at our flaws, our imperfections, our shortcomings, and convince ourselves that we are not equipped, not ready, or simply not worthy. But the reality is, God doesn't choose us because we are flawless or because we meet some standard of perfection. He chooses us because of our potential and the unique qualities He has woven into our being. God sees us not just for where we are in the present, but for what we can become. He does not wait until we are fully prepared or have every detail of our lives figured out. The truth is, He often calls us when we feel the least ready, when we feel most unqualified, or when we are still in the process of growing and learning. That's the beauty of God's grace and purpose. He meets us where we are, not where we think we should be. In fact, our imperfections and weaknesses often become the very things that make us more suited for the mission He has set before us. If you think about it, many of the most influential figures in history weren't chosen because they were perfect or prepared. They were chosen because of the unique qualities they brought to the table and how God used them despite their flaws. Consider the story of Moses. He was called to lead the Israelites out of slavery. But when God called him, Moses felt unqualified. He doubted his ability, especially because he struggled with speech. Yet God didn't look at Moses' limitations. Instead, He saw Moses' heart, his willingness, and the deep potential to lead His people. Despite his imperfections, Moses became one of the greatest leaders in history. God used Moses in mighty ways, showing that it's not about our perfection, but our willingness to trust in God's plan, even when we feel inadequate. Likewise, look at David, a young shepherd boy who was chosen to be king, even though he wasn't the eldest, the strongest, or the most obvious choice. His brothers were far more qualified in terms of appearance and status. Yet God saw something in David that others didn't. David was chosen because of his heart, his faith, and his reliance on God. He had flaws, he made mistakes, but God used him to do incredible things. David's story is a reminder that God doesn't choose us based on the world's standards. He looks at our hearts and our faithfulness to his calling. And think about the Apostle Paul, a man who once persecuted Christians, but became one of the most influential figures in spreading the gospel. Paul's transformation from a persecutor to a preacher is a powerful testament to the fact that God does not choose us because we are flawless, but because he can use us for his glory. When God chooses you, it's not about your past mistakes or the hurdles you've faced. It's about the future he has planned for you and the incredible ways he will shape you to fulfill his purpose. In our modern lives, we often measure our worth based on accomplishments, accolades, or how others see us. We are constantly told by society that we must be perfect in order to succeed or make a difference. We compare ourselves to others, feeling like we don't measure up, thinking that we need to be more polished, more talented, or more prepared before we can step into what God has for us. But God's definition of readiness is completely different. He does not ask us to be perfect. He asks us to be willing. He calls us as we are, and with him, he equips us for what's ahead. Being chosen by God isn't about having it all together. It's about having the courage to step out in faith, even when you feel unsure, unprepared, or unqualified. It's about trusting that he will guide you, strengthen you, and provide you with the tools you need along the way. It's through our imperfections that we can experience his grace most profoundly, and it's in our weaknesses that his power is often most evident. So if you're feeling unqualified, remember that you don't have to be perfect to fulfill God's purpose for your life. In fact, your imperfections may be the very things that God will use to make his glory known. The key is to embrace your flaws, your imperfections, and your vulnerabilities, and trust that God is working through them to fulfill his purpose in you. He didn't choose you because you were already perfect. He chose you because he saw something in you that the world might overlook. And that is where the true power of being chosen lies, when we are willing to trust in God's plan, even when we feel like we are not enough. God doesn't call the qualified. He qualifies the called. And if you have been called, you are more than enough. A network error occurred. Please check your connection and try again. If this issue persists, please contact us through our help center at helpopenai.com. Challenges are often viewed as obstacles, roadblocks, or signs that something is wrong in our lives. In a world that values comfort and success, it's easy to assume that when things get hard, we've somehow failed or veered off the path. But what if the challenges we face aren't hindrances at all? What if they are actually a vital part of our journey, carefully designed to refine and strengthen us for the very purpose we were chosen for? It is through our struggles that we often discover the deepest reservoirs of strength, resilience, and faith within ourselves. God uses the challenges we face not to punish us, but to prepare us, to shape us, and to teach us the lessons we need in order to fulfill his divine purpose for our lives. Every challenge, no matter how daunting or discouraging, is an opportunity for growth. Challenges refine us by forcing us out of our comfort zones. They test our limits, push us to dig deeper, and compel us to lean on God in ways we never would have if everything were easy. Think about gold, how it must be refined through intense heat to burn away impurities and become pure and valuable. Similarly, the trials and tribulations we go through serve to refine us, purging away the weaknesses and fears that hold us back, leaving us more focused, stronger, and clearer about our purpose. Without challenges, we would never experience the true depth of God's strength and provision. It is often in the hardest seasons that we discover just how faithful God truly is. When we face obstacles that seem insurmountable, when we stand at the edge of what feels like a cliff and wonder how we will make it through, that's when God's presence can become most real to us. He doesn't leave us in these moments. He walks with us, holding our hand, providing the strength and wisdom we need to overcome. These challenges are not evidence that we are unworthy or unprepared. They are simply part of the process of being shaped and strengthened for the purpose God has chosen for us. It is in the midst of adversity that our character is developed. God doesn't allow us to face challenges without purpose. Instead, he uses these experiences to mold us into the people we need to be, to carry out his will. Consider the story of Joseph in the Bible. Joseph was chosen for a great purpose, to save his people from famine and to position himself as a leader in Egypt. But before he could fulfill this destiny, he had to endure betrayal by his brothers, slavery, false accusations, and imprisonment. These were not random hardships. They were steps in God's plan to prepare Joseph for the incredible leadership role he would one day hold. Joseph's story is a reminder that even when we face what feels like relentless suffering, God is at work, preparing us for something greater. Similarly, look at the life of Job, a man who faced overwhelming loss, suffering, and trials, yet remained faithful to God throughout it all. Job's challenges were not meaningless. They were part of a divine test of his faith and resilience. Through his trials, Job grew in wisdom and understanding, and his story stands as a powerful testimony of God's ability to bring good out of even the most painful circumstances. Challenges are not designed to break us, but to build us up, to fortify our faith, and to bring us closer to the person God intended us to be. When we face difficulties, it's natural to question why they are happening or wonder if we've done something wrong. But instead of seeing challenges as punishment, we must learn to view them as opportunities for growth, understanding, and transformation. God doesn't promise a life without struggles. He promises that we won't face them alone. In every hardship, He is there to guide us, to teach us, and to give us the strength to overcome. Sometimes challenges come in the form of health problems, financial struggles, or relational difficulties. Other times they might be emotional battles, doubts, or a crisis of faith. No matter what form they take, these struggles are designed to strengthen us, build our resilience, and draw us closer to God. Each trial gives us a chance to rely more on His strength than on our own. The more we rely on God, the more we experience His power in our lives. It's through challenges that we learn to trust Him deeply, knowing that even when the path ahead is unclear, He is working behind the scenes to shape us for the greater purpose He has for us. Even the moments of failure or perceived defeat are not without purpose. Sometimes we experience setbacks or fall short of our expectations. These moments can feel devastating, but they are not the end of the story. In fact, they often become the turning point in our journey. Failure teaches humility, patience, and perseverance. It helps us to understand that success is not solely determined by our efforts, but by God's grace. The lessons learned in these moments often prepare us for the breakthroughs and victories that lie ahead. The key is to not lose hope when facing challenges, but to recognize that they are part of the process. The path to fulfilling the purpose God has chosen for us is rarely a straight line. It's often winding, filled with unexpected turns, and sometimes even detours. But every challenge, no matter how difficult, is an integral part of the journey. When we embrace the struggles and face them with faith and perseverance, we are slowly being transformed into the person God is calling us to be. Ultimately, challenges are not the enemies of our purpose. They are the instruments that shape us into the people we are destined to become. They are not signs of God's absence, but proof of His involvement. Every difficulty is an opportunity for God to reveal His power in our lives. And as we face each challenge, we become more prepared, more equipped, and more confident in the unique purpose for which we have been chosen. The journey of being chosen by God is not a destination, but a process. It's a journey that transforms us in ways we can't always foresee or understand. Personal growth is one of the most beautiful aspects of being chosen for a purpose. It's through this growth that we not only discover our full potential, but also become more aligned with the will of God. The journey of growth is often not linear. It's a series of steps, each building on the other, sometimes in ways that feel challenging, confusing, or uncomfortable. But each step, each experience is necessary for fulfilling the divine purpose God has set for our lives. God does not call us to stay stagnant. He calls us to grow, to evolve, and to become the best version of ourselves. This growth is deeply personal and is rooted in the development of both our inner and outer selves. It's about becoming more compassionate, more resilient, more courageous, more wise, and more aligned with the values and truths that God has placed within us. This transformation doesn't happen overnight. It is a process, often filled with small, incremental changes that eventually lead to monumental shifts in our character and perspective. Personal growth in the context of God's purpose for our lives involves a deepening of our understanding of who we are in Him. We are not just created beings floating aimlessly in the world. We are sons and daughters of a loving, intentional Creator. Realizing this truth is the first step in the journey of personal growth. When we understand our identity in Christ, we begin to see the world and ourselves through a new lens, one that reflects His love, His purpose, and His plan for our lives. This understanding enables us to step forward with confidence and faith, knowing that we are not walking this path alone. One of the most significant ways God grows us is through the experiences He allows us to face. These experiences, whether they are moments of joy, sorrow, success, or failure, serve as opportunities for us to grow deeper in our faith and understanding. Every experience, every season teaches us something new about God, about life, and about ourselves. Sometimes these lessons are clear and immediate, but other times they unfold slowly, revealing wisdom over time. The beauty of this process is that even when we don't fully understand the lesson in the moment, we can trust that God is working in and through every experience to shape us for His purpose. As we grow, we begin to develop new skills and strengths that enable us to fulfill the unique calling God has placed on our lives. Personal growth involves becoming more equipped, more capable, and more confident in our ability to contribute to the world around us. God doesn't just choose us and send us out into the world unprepared. He is constantly equipping us, whether through education, relationships, challenges, or inner spiritual growth. Every experience is an opportunity for God to mold us into the person He has called us to be, and every gift, talent, or strength that we develop is meant to be used for His glory and for the benefit of others. Another important aspect of personal growth is the cultivation of humility. As we grow, we often learn that we don't have all the answers. We discover that we need others, that we are not always in control, and that we must rely on God's guidance, wisdom, and strength. This humility allows us to open ourselves to learning and to being shaped by God's hand. It teaches us that growth is not about achieving personal success or recognition, but about becoming more like Christ, loving, serving, and giving of ourselves for the good of others. Through the process of growth, we also become more aware of our weaknesses and limitations. It's easy to become discouraged when we realize how much more we need to grow, but this awareness is actually a gift. It allows us to depend more fully on God, to seek His strength and guidance, and to embrace the truth that we cannot do it all on our own. Our weaknesses create space for God's power to shine through. In fact, it is often in our most vulnerable moments that we experience the greatest growth. When we face challenges, fail, or struggle, we are reminded that we are not perfect, and that's okay. Our imperfection doesn't disqualify us from the purpose God has for us. Rather, it allows His grace and strength to be made perfect in our weakness. As we grow personally, we also grow spiritually. Personal growth and spiritual growth are intertwined, and they feed off one another. As we learn more about who God is, what He desires for our lives, and how He works in the world, our faith deepens. The more we grow in our understanding of God's love, the more we are equipped to carry out His purpose. Spiritual growth often comes through prayer, reflection, study of Scripture, and time spent in relationship with God. It is through these practices that we learn to trust Him more, to hear His voice more clearly, and to follow His lead more faithfully. Growth also involves learning to embrace change. God's plan for our lives often requires us to step out of our comfort zones, to let go of old habits, and to make room for new ways of thinking, being, and doing. Change can be difficult, especially when it challenges the status quo or brings us out of familiar surroundings. But growth always involves change. It's about stretching ourselves, breaking free from past limitations, and becoming who God intended us to be. Personal growth is also about becoming more attuned to the needs of others. As we grow, we begin to see the world differently. we start to recognize the pain, suffering, and struggles of those around us, and we feel called to act, to serve, and to make a difference. We grow not only for our own benefit, but also to be a blessing to others. The more we grow, the more equipped we become to love and serve others, to walk alongside them in their own journeys, and to help them experience the love of Christ. This journey of personal growth is not easy, but it is one of the most rewarding aspects of being chosen for a purpose. It is through growth that we become the people God has called us to be, and it is through this transformation that we can step confidently into the purpose He has set before us. The journey may be long, and at times it may be difficult. We live in a culture that encourages us to rush, to move faster, and to constantly push for results. Yet when it comes to fulfilling the purpose God has for our lives, His timing doesn't work on our schedule. Instead, God operates within a divine timetable that is perfectly orchestrated, and while it may not always align with our own expectations, it is always perfect in its design. The realization that God's timing is flawless and that He orchestrates events in our lives for a greater purpose is one of the most reassuring truths we can hold on to as we walk through life's journey. God is never in a hurry, and He never makes mistakes. The way He unfolds His plan for our lives is purposeful, intentional, and designed with divine wisdom that surpasses our understanding. We may find ourselves wondering why something isn't happening as quickly as we hoped, or why a certain season of our life seems to be dragging on longer than we anticipated. But God's timing isn't about being quick or efficient. It's about being right. Every moment, every season of waiting, every step in the process is necessary for the full revelation of His plan in our lives. There are countless examples in the Bible that demonstrate how God's timing is always perfect, even when it doesn't make sense in the moment. One of the most prominent examples is the life of Abraham. God made Abraham a promise that he would become the father of many nations, yet for many years Abraham and his wife Sarah were childless. They waited and prayed for the fulfillment of God's promise, but for years, nothing happened. At one point, they grew impatient and even tried to take matters into their own hands by having Abraham father a child with Sarah's servant, Hagar. But God's plan was bigger than their impatience, and He had a specific timing in mind. Ultimately, at an age when it seemed impossible, God fulfilled His promise, and Abraham and Sarah had a son, Isaac. Through Isaac, God's covenant promise to Abraham was fulfilled. In hindsight, we see that the years of waiting were not wasted. They were a part of God's perfect timing and preparation for a great purpose. Similarly, consider the story of Joseph. When Joseph was sold into slavery by his brothers, he may have wondered why God had allowed such a thing to happen. His life was filled with struggles and betrayals, and it would have been easy to question why God wasn't moving more quickly to deliver him from these hardships. But over time, Joseph's circumstances shifted, and God's perfect plan for his life unfolded. He eventually rose to power in Egypt and was able to save his family from a devastating famine. Joseph's journey wasn't quick or easy, but it was exactly what God had intended. His time of waiting and suffering was not in vain. It was part of the preparation for a purpose that would not only change his life, but also the lives of many others. God's timing was perfect in Joseph's story, as it is in ours. We also see God's timing in the life of Jesus. God sent His Son into the world at exactly the right moment. If you look at the historical context, you'll see that Jesus was born into a time and place where the conditions were ideal for His message to spread. The Roman Empire had created a vast road system, allowing for easier travel. The Greek language had become a common language, enabling the message of Jesus to be communicated widely. Yet, if we had been living in those days, we might have wondered why God waited so long to send the Messiah. Why not sooner? Why wait for so many generations? But God's plan was perfect, and He knew that the world needed exactly what He was about to send at exactly the right time. Jesus' life, death, and resurrection unfolded according to God's divine timetable, And through that timing, the world was transformed forever. In our own lives, we often find ourselves struggling with the waiting periods. Those seasons when we feel like things are not moving, when it seems like we are stuck in a holding pattern. It's easy to become frustrated and discouraged when our prayers seem unanswered, when the doors we've been knocking on remain closed, or when it feels like we are making no progress toward our goals. But God's timing is never delayed, it's always on track. When we trust that He has a perfect plan and that He is in control, even in the waiting, we can find peace in knowing that He is working behind the scenes. Every season of waiting is a season of preparation. It's during these moments that God is shaping us, building our character, strengthening our faith, and preparing us for what's ahead. Sometimes God's timing may even seem contrary to what we think is best for us. We may pray for a job, a relationship, or an opportunity, only to find that it doesn't come when we expect it to. We may face a setback or a period of uncertainty, and we wonder why things aren't unfolding the way we thought they would. But the truth is, God sees the bigger picture. He understands the depths of our hearts, and He knows exactly what we need and when we need it. The opportunities, the blessings, and the answers to our prayers will come at the right moment according to His perfect timing. This doesn't mean we should sit idly by waiting for things to happen. It doesn't mean we should stop striving or working toward our goals. However, it does mean that we can trust God's timing in every season. We can be confident that He is working all things together for our good, even when we can't see the immediate results. When we trust in His perfect timing, we begin to experience a peace that transcends understanding, knowing that He has everything under control. God's timing also teaches us patience. We live in a world that values instant gratification, but God's timing cultivates a different kind of patience, a patient trust in His process. It teaches us to wait with hope, to remain faithful even when things aren't unfolding as we expected. The waiting periods are not wasted. They are times when God works in our hearts, deepening our faith, expanding our vision, and aligning our desires with His will. So when you feel like things are moving too slowly, or when you're unsure why things aren't happening as quickly as you hoped, remember that God's timing is perfect. Every season, every delay, every waiting period is a part of the greater plan He is unfolding in your life. Trust that He is guiding you step by step, preparing you for what lies ahead, and that in His perfect timing, all things will come together as they should. His plan for you is good, and His timing is always just right. The concept of divine purpose is something that resonates deeply within us, and understanding that God has a specific and meaningful purpose for our lives is both humbling and empowering. Often we are so consumed by the demands of daily life, the expectations of others, or the pressures of personal ambition that we forget to pause and reflect on the greater purpose for which we were created. But the truth is, God has not only chosen us, but He has also assigned us a unique mission that is vital to His grand design. This divine purpose is far beyond anything we can imagine, and it is deeply woven into the fabric of who we are. Embracing this purpose is the key to living a life of fulfillment, peace, and impact. First, it's important to understand that our purpose is not merely about accomplishing a set of tasks or achieving personal success. It is about aligning our lives with the will of God, serving His greater plan, and bringing glory to Him. Often we think of purpose in terms of our careers, relationships, or personal accomplishments. While these areas can be part of God's purpose for us, they are not the entire scope. Our purpose is broader. It encompasses how we live, how we treat others, and how we reflect God's love in everything we do. It is through living with intentionality, focusing on God's calling, and staying faithful to His lead that we begin to discover the fullness of His purpose for our lives. One of the most profound ways God reveals our purpose is through our passions, talents, and desires. Each of us is uniquely equipped with specific gifts and abilities that can be used to fulfill God's plan. These gifts are not accidental. They are part of the divine design, whether it's the gift of leadership, creativity, compassion, teaching, or problem solving. These abilities are intended to be used to serve others and to make an impact in the world around us. Understanding that your talents are a part of a greater purpose helps you to see your work, your interactions, and your relationships in a new light. Instead of viewing your actions as isolated or insignificant, you begin to understand that every step you take in alignment with God's will is contributing to something much larger than yourself. God's purpose for our lives often involves serving others, making a difference in the lives of those around us, and becoming a part of the community that builds up the kingdom of God. This service doesn't have to be grand or monumental. It can be in the small, everyday acts of kindness, encouragement, or love that we show to those around us. Jesus himself demonstrated this through his life. Though he was the Son of God, he spent his days serving others, healing the sick, comforting the brokenhearted, and teaching the truth of God's love. In doing so, he fulfilled his divine purpose. His life serves as a model for us, showing that true greatness in the kingdom of God is not found in positions of power or status, but in serving others with humility and compassion. Understanding that we have been chosen for a divine purpose also means understanding that we are not alone in this journey. God walks with us, equips us, and leads us every step of the way. It's easy to feel overwhelmed by the weight of responsibility that comes with recognizing God's purpose for us. But the truth is that God has never called us to fulfill this purpose on our own strength. Instead, he empowers us through his Holy Spirit, providing the wisdom, courage, and resilience needed to carry out the task he has set before us. We are chosen not because of our ability, but because of God's sufficiency and his ability to work through us. This truth allows us to walk in confidence, knowing that we do not have to be perfect or fully equipped in our own strength. When we trust in God's provision, we can step into our purpose boldly, knowing that he will provide everything we need along the way. Another important aspect of understanding our purpose is the reality that our calling is not always easy or straightforward. Often when God chooses us for a purpose, it requires sacrifice, perseverance, and sometimes even suffering. God's purpose for our lives doesn't shield us from challenges or pain, but it does offer a deeper meaning in the midst of those trials. We can take comfort in knowing that even in moments of difficulty, God is using those experiences to refine us, shape our character, and prepare us for the next step in his plan. The Apostle Paul provides an excellent example of this. Despite facing incredible hardships, imprisonment, beatings, shipwrecks, and constant opposition, Paul remained focused on his purpose of spreading the gospel. He understood that God's purpose was greater than his personal comfort, and his life serves as an example of how to embrace God's calling, even in the midst of difficulty. Moreover, God's purpose for us is always aligned with his greater plan for humanity. We are not called to live for ourselves alone. We are called to be a part of something bigger. Our purpose is tied to God's mission of bringing salvation, hope, and transformation to the world. We are called to be agents of change, spreading the message of Christ's love and redemption to those who have yet to hear it. This purpose transcends culture, geography, and personal circumstances. It is a universal calling that connects us to the body of believers around the world, all working together to fulfill God's greater mission on earth. Understanding this larger context of our purpose helps us to stay focused, even when things seem challenging or when the results of our efforts are not immediately visible. We trust that God is working through us, using our actions, no matter how small, to make a lasting impact in his kingdom. Additionally, knowing that we have been chosen for a divine purpose instills in us a sense of responsibility. Our purpose is not just for us to enjoy. It is a gift that comes with a call to action. We are meant to use our lives to serve others, to share God's love, and to make the world a better place. When we live with this awareness, we begin to make decisions with greater intentionality. We ask ourselves not only how something will benefit us, but how it aligns with the greater purpose God has called us to fulfill. Every choice becomes an opportunity to live out that purpose, to be a light in the darkness, to bring hope where there is despair, and to show love where there is hate. Understanding that God has chosen us for a purpose also brings with it a sense of peace. It helps us to see our lives through the lens of God's sovereignty. We are not here by accident. We are not drifting aimlessly through life. We are part of a larger divine plan, and that plan is good. Even when life doesn't go as we expect, or when things feel uncertain, we can rest in the knowledge that God's purpose will prevail. He is in control, and He is working all things together for our good and for His glory. Ultimately, embracing our purpose is the key to living a life that is both fulfilling and impactful. It allows us to step into the fullness of what God has created us for, and to see that every moment, every action, and every relationship is meaningful when we align it with God's divine plan. The purpose God has chosen for you is unique and irreplaceable, and it has the power to change your life, the lives of those around you, and the world. Embracing that purpose is one of the most powerful and life-changing decisions you can make.